It up and light the shine, stop hiding. I'm feeling like I'm running out of time. No, I'm mindful of the fact it's operated from inside. I ain't fighting against the tide and nullify my pride. Please help me take it over.
We studied with you many times and we keep coming back to it, that all of us, our civilization is originally from Africa, but it all went through ancient Babylon, and there in ancient Babylon for the first time the political, ideological, social, but truly spiritual crisis of humanity erupted. The humanity understood that in its egotistic development reached such a state where it begins to consume itself like an animal that is eating its own flesh. That's the ego. It was revealed, it began to express itself in ancient Babylon 3,500 years ago in a form that everybody knows, which is called the Tower of Babel. The growing ego wants to climb up to the heavens, rule over the world on the one hand, but on the other hand, everything is deteriorating because he aspires upward egotistically. But in order to rise upwards, we have to gather everyone to a single desire, to a single goal, and the ego is not allowed. And this is part of nature, of man. And in our days it is revealed again because we did not correct it. We're missing unity, connection, specifically to attain that highest point of development for our civilization. And by that we'll reach the highest point of the evolution of all of nature. All the worlds and everything depends on us. And at that time, when it happened, there were a lot of disagreements, a conflict that occurred between two trends. The social development demanded connection, but each one was an egotist. We all went through those states. We're all from Babylon, meaning it's not that our forefathers were there, but rather us in our previous incarnations were there. There's nothing new, as Baal Sulam writes. But all our movements, those are souls that return and incarnate forward and forward and onward until we reach the goal. So we who were in Babylon, and this crisis that erupted there had brought Abraham to understand what is happening. He's one of the more famous people that lived there, and he understood the problem was in men that has to connect, because when civilization becomes one closed system, yet continues the egotistic separation, tearing apart, it brings about the destruction of society. That's what happened. So Nimrod, who was opposing Abraham called everyone to connect. Abraham called everyone to connect, and then Babylon divided in two. One part, a small part, that followed Abraham, and another part that opposed him. There was one part claimed that capitalistic development is the correct way. That's what we have to do, and that's what we see in the world today. That capitalists, it doesn't matter how to call them, those who they believe that you have to work with the ego, consume more, sell more, buy more and more. But in truth, it's all eating itself. it begins to die. And in ancient Babylon, society divided in two. As we said, one group followed Abraham. He brought them here to this place where we physically are. But in truth, where did he take them? He led them spiritually. We know that everything written in the Bible, in the Torah, speaks about spiritual development. And he brought them to the land of Israel, Eretz Israel. Eretz means desire, ratzon, and El means towards the Creator, meaning towards the point of unity, point of connection. There's no Creator. There's the connection of everyone, and when that connection is revealed between everyone, it is called the Creator. So that's what he did. Those who followed him, they started to call themselves Yehudim, Jews. Yehudim from the word Yichud, Chibur, or Israelim from the word Yashar El, towards the Creator. And they were also called Ivrim from the word Ever, beyond, because they crossed the Machsam. Ever means the other side. And that's how they existed. For 1500 years, they existed in that paradigm, in that tendency, that state. And everyone more or less had a sense and the sense, but more or less everyone were in the realization of this idea, connection above the ego, meaning the ego grows and we rise above it. It grows more, even more, and we rise even higher. And that's how they developed. Until they reached the realization of their mission, and then they fell from the spiritual degree to the completely egotistic degree. Why? Because everyone else in Babylon remained in the same degree. They continued to develop slowly, to disperse throughout the countries. There were no countries back then, but they dispersed across the continents. And something had to be done with them in order to prepare them for the time where they would be able to also come out of their ego. So, to that end, the part that corrected itself has to be corrupted, fall, become intermingled with everyone, and after that, intermingling, that mixing, everyone can begin to ascend. That's what we study with you from the introduction to the wisdom of Kabbalah, the study of the 10 Sfirot, meaning the wisdom of Kabbalah specifically talks about this process. As you know yourself, it speaks of those things in mechanical terms, mathematical, physical. That's where we study all those things. So they attained the degree of the first temple, Bet HaMikdash HaRishon. This is the highest degree that they've attained. This is the place where they can receive the full correction. And then they started to descend. That's what we study with you from the shattering of the vessels in the 7th part of study of the 10 Sfirot. And after that, the destruction of the second temple. 600 years after the first, and then the final fall. 2 falls, you could say. The first one is the falling of the desire to receive, and then all the receivers, the final shattering, they fell to the lower degree of everyone, and even lower than that. Meaning, if they had they fallen into the degree of everyone that existed back then, maybe they would have continued to exist like everyone else. But because they fell even lower, they were in plus 125, and they fell into minus 125. And in this way, they've lost everything they had, and began to intermix with the other nations, other people. They were banished. They had to be in exile in order to mix with them, to give them religion and culture. At that time, religion actually turned from Kabbalah into Judaism, and then Christianity developed, and then Islam, and only now this intermingling has ended, and the world has reached again a state similar to how it was in ancient Babylon. Except now we have the method for the correction of the ego, we understand what it is. This idea, it's now properly developed with us. We have the source material, we have the ability to develop, to advance, and then most importantly, is that in those people that they did not understand that the ego was what was killing them. And now, in those same people, this awareness begins to appear. The Zohar and Baal Sulam in the introduction to the book of Zohar explain to us what is the order of correction in our time. Somewhere from item 60 onward to the end of the introduction, he speaks about it, that first of all, we need to bring out of exile, out of concealment, the wisdom of Kabbalah. We have to reveal it, we have to teach it, we have to understand it, get to know it. Those who yearn for it, they are called Yashar Kel Israel. And the next phase, after they organize themselves and begin to understand their mission, their destiny, then there's an obligation to be engaged in the next phase. And that when people who were in the spiritual ascension and then they fell from it, and on their own they cannot rise to it again. They fell, and there is an intermixing, meaning there's from that group of Abraham, that ancient people of Israel, those who were higher fell lower, and those who were lower fell a little less, and that's that kind of mixing that we study, not in the 7th part, but the 8th part of the study of the 10 Sfirot. Meaning there are very precise conditions for the conditions of the connection between the light and the Kli. It's hard to understand it, but really in practice we don't need it in order to know what we have to do practically today. So what it says is that we have to raise those reshimot that exist between all those people in the world, but those who came before, who were in the attainment of a spiritual degree, those are today's Jews. Meaning, we have to, in some way, to address them and do something with them. So the first stage is when we enter our attainment, our adhesion, our connection, coming close to the goal. We enter this movement in this same ladder. We begin with you to digest, to accept those things that enter the first phase, and we can realize that first phase when we take this collective mass and we begin to carry them behind us. We cannot rise higher without bringing up with us the next degree. And the next degree is those people who are today called Jews. And after them, the next degree, guess who they will be? No, not the nations of the world. There are the 10 tribes. The 10 tribes that disappeared after the destruction of the first temple. They will also make an appearance. There are somewhere in Pakistan, there are 200 million, another half a billion in Africa somewhere, or in Asia. We don't really understand. And they will rise. I don't know if we will engage in it. It's not important, really. No, the important thing is that this is the order of correction. But this will happen very quickly, because there the light will work. The light will work there. How do we enter the next degree? Thanks to the fact that the next degree is following us, meaning those Jews that we know them today, not those who are hidden, unknown. This way we'll begin to ascend. A lot of things will become scrutinized. Who is closer, who is more distant, who are the people who are coming towards it, who are moving away from it. The attraction to it will appear in man, that the spark will lead him forward. But it doesn't matter. It only points at the degrees, the order of the correction. What else can I say? This is the mission that's ahead of us, meaning we raise ourselves by coming closer as a group. How do we connect with the Creator? We lift the next degree behind us by helping them to organize as a group and connecting them to us. And that's how we advance. Meaning, that's our mission right now. And the next stages we don't even think about at this point. Because, as Baal Sulam writes at the end of the introduction to the book of Zohar, the following degrees will follow us with the help of the light. We wouldn't have to explain too much to them, to tell them. They will reluctantly, thanks to this wide, massive movement that will capture the whole world and the suffering that will envelop the world. And thanks to us, there will not be physical sufferings like the annihilations and destruction. They will be sufferings as a result of the lack of meaning of life. Meaning everyone will have enough to live on around the world like we have now, but the young generation will have no reason to exist, no meaning, and it will become more and more apparent. This will push them forward, and the light, will reveal all these states and will pull them forward. The important thing is that we, as the pioneers, will be able to find the connection with the Creator and connect to the next degree behind us, and after that everything will advance on its own volition, so to speak. That's what we study from the wisdom of Kabbalah, and I hope that we will see it with you in the near future, that it's really beginning to ignite, the wheels begin to turn, and we will aspire to move forward. That's really the problem that's ahead of us, meaning the correction of humanity in becoming similar to nature. Nature, that's a closed integral system called the Creator, Elokim, or Teva, nature. It's the same thing. Elokim is made of two parts, Galgalta Einaim and Achap. We together are Galgalta Einaim, the higher part that yearns for the Creator, longs for the Creator, and after us we have to truly carry the Achap, the egotistic part, the one that's kind of blocked a little bit spiritually. I mean, they're heavy, they're not dumb, but those sparks are truly concealed, hidden with them. That's why it's hard for us to pull them with us, to soften them, but we have to do it. And it doesn't matter that these people, the Jews, really ingrates, they're heavy, they're selfish, they're has a thick skin on the one hand. On the other hand, they have such qualities that if we use them, we can pull them towards us, connect them, and by that to carry them with us forward. We have to learn how to do it. The psychology is simple. You will see it. You can attain it with experience. It's not a problem. It's a known practice. The practice is known in the world. There's nothing to hide. We just have to understand that our movement towards the goal, our movement towards the goal, and our movement, the movement of everyone towards the goal depends on them, how much we can carry them, and on that depends how the rest of the nations will follow. And we see how wherever those 50 million people are, of which there are women and children and old people. So all in all, the active community is a few million, a million or two. We know how it is. We'll see all over the world what they do, in what are they engaged. We'll see that they're a part of the world that's the most responsible for the state of the world. And if we can attract this part to follow us, the rest of the world will follow and advance. That's how it's structured. There's nothing to do. We have to understand those laws of nature and work with them. Of course, that it's certain that if we would invested our efforts in attracting a few million people from every other nation, it would have been much easier. But unfortunately, we have no choice here. So, next, so what else did I want to mention? There's a question here about anti-Semitism. Because a part of humanity from back then, from ancient Babylon and onward, that part from Babylon that was connected with the goal of creation and somehow received nourishment from above, and not just from below, from this corporeal, bestial world, but also received nourishment from above. And the rest of humanity who does not have such nourishment from above, they have a sensation, a feeling that they're being robbed. They feel like these people have something, even though they themselves don't get it. Talk to them. They're really disconnected. They think because they're smart, that people envy them, and maybe other reasons. I don't know why they think that they're special. Or maybe they think there's a problem with religion here. Both Christianity and Islam that are against it. But we can see places like North and South Korea, they don't even know who the Jews are, but that's where the highest rate of anti-Semitism compared to the rest of the world. It's not very clear today, but we'll see how this map is being revealed and why specifically in those places, in those nations, anti-Semitism is prevalent, like in Canada, for example. Why? Where is it coming from? We don't understand it. But anti-Semitism originally is a result of, even though there's a part that exists in a shattered state, as we learned from the shattering of the Kelim, the Kli falls from above, from the world of Atzilut to below. It still receives some nourishment. There's from above. There's an illumination. There's an Or Mekif that shines on it, on the Kli, and that's why there's something that those who lack this illumination, they can sense it positively or negatively, doesn't matter, but they have some relationship towards it, and that's already dictated by the relationship between the light and the kli that is in exile below the parsa in the worlds of Bia, in our world, basically. So it turns out that anti-Semitism exists and will continue to exist. When everything is good in the world, anti-Semitism is lower. They don't have that sensation that they have something and I don't. Sometimes I have more than they have. Meaning, when the animalistic degree is fulfilled, there's no problems. But if there's no pleasure, no filling, no fulfillment, if there are certain kind of breaks into the human degree, if there's a desire to pursue the higher aspects of humanity, then they feel it. And specifically in this aspiration upwards, food, sex, family, money, honor, knowledge, control, rulership. There's an aspiration that's higher than that. Like the younger generation, they're willing to kill themselves. They join ISIS, however you call it in Russian. All such extreme terrorist organizations, they lack the meaning of life. Drugs, suicides, depression. The world can fulfill us with everything except for one thing: meaning. Meaning of what are you being filled with? This we lack. So, therefore, on the one hand, there's a great demand to finding that meaning, and on the other hand, it is felt that this meaning is there somewhere. They know it. So that problem repeats itself and will never go away.
This is why anti-Semitism will continue until what is truly hidden in the Jews will be revealed, even though they don't even know it. And this is the meaning of life that we attain through the wisdom of Kabbalah. But the realization of that meaning, if humanity would have settled for attainment and study like us, but they're not capable of doing it because according to the pyramid, we have to go forward. Then the Jews, then all the rest of humanity. Well, from all the rest of humanity, we also have the 10 tribes, but that doesn't matter. They are mixed anyway, so much so that it doesn't matter. And so on and so forth. So, here, nevertheless, this problem of anti-Semitism will remain. We have to understand it. We have to try to explain it. We have to work on that. And to explain it in such a way that, on the one hand, it will be correct, however, in a way that the Jews will understand that they have no choice. That actually the ideology that created them as a nation, because truly this nation does not exist. A Frenchman can be a Jew. Not as if somehow, but truly a Jew. Precisely so, and that's it. If he takes upon himself this ideology and some other external things, Brit Milah, anyway, all over the world we have Muslims, Americans do it nowadays, even in hospitals, so that doesn't matter. Because a Jew is unity and Yeshar Kel. So, anyone can do it. There's no such nation really. It's an ideological group that has a single goal, which is achieved, realized through their connection. And how to connect, that's his whole wisdom, the wisdom of Kabbalah. How should we connect in order to attain this high goal? This is what we have to tell them, that's what we have to explain. And once people start engaging in it, those Jews, and we also have to tell them that, once you start engaging in that is in a connection between you, immediately there will be a calming down over the whole world. Not just people settling for the animalistic needs, but people will feel that they have something to yearn for because you've been mixed together following the exile of 400 years. When you start engaging in that, you'll pass the light to them. They won't know it, the whole world. They just absorb it, receive it, just like today we receive any new degree that comes to humanity. A new generation comes up, and it is wiser, or it's different in some manner. It just becomes that way by itself. We don't govern that, manage it, we don't define it. We did not create it in any way. So it turns out that everything depends on our connection. Once, the moment we start connecting, everything will fall into place. Anti-Semitism will disappear. Maybe that's what they're concerned about. But actually, for us, the most important thing is that we will bring the whole world, us and following us, the whole world, to connection, to a state of the complete correction. Moving on. Therefore, we have to understand that we are indeed the avant-garde. It is our responsibility to bring behind us, with us, all the Jews of the world. Once we start doing that from this degree, then the next degree following us, the lower degree, is our Achab. This is our Achab, and once we start connecting with them, we will start connecting to the Creator, because the movement towards Him cannot be without the egoistic part, and they are that egoistic part. Next. That is, we have to, in any possible way, after we explain that salvation is in connection, and only in such a way we can pass the light to the world, only in such a way can we calm them down, the whole world, and rid them of all the suffering, well, possibly for those Jews, the most important thing to be saved of is anti-Semitism, but they have to understand that they have to bring the whole world to pacification, to perfection, to the spiritual ascent, so that any person in the world, to the extent that he feels a lack for the meaning of life, it's the desire, this yearning to receive the light, to be filled up. That's what we have to do. And for this, those nations of the world don't have to do anything. Just our connection with the Jews, to that, and to the same extent, our connection with the Creator, and it cannot be any other way, because the Kli has to be complete, Galgalte and Aim and the Chap. That will immediately bring our world to the light. And even now we can see it. Maybe we don't grasp it all away, but if you think about something, if you talk about something, if you take some decisions, you start seeing that people around you are speaking in a similar manner. And truly supernatural thoughts and movements. In Israel, it's very evident. We talk about connection. Suddenly everyone, all the political parties are talking about unity, connection. We say that something has to be done within a week. That's it. Suddenly everywhere on TV, on the radio, that's how people talk. And it happens naturally. They don't know how come it pops up in them. Just like the way that new actions appear in the world. We shouldn't tell them that this is Kabbalah, that Abraham was a Kabbalist. that we are bringing them Kabbalah, whatever is interesting to them. What does it matter? What kind of sauce? We bring this whole thing in. And the main thing is connection. That's what matters. Humanity. Because it is in such a crisis, such a huge shattering, it has to connect. And our role is to do it first and to show them how to do it. And therefore, it can be based also on us bringing a better education, not education, but the system itself. That is, those new frameworks, like circles, etc., that we suggest that they should be put into schools and kindergarten, any organization, any office, any workplace, etc. So in all kinds of different ways to assist connection between people. And after that, to explain to them the structure of the world, the integrality of the world, why whatever is happening, why all kinds of such events or others are happening as a result of that integrality. If they ask us, then we need to know how to answer. Who are we? And why suddenly we are caring about that? What do we need that for? But in principle, usually they accept it in a good way. We have to know how to approach them, of course. We have to, after you open up that little lock, after that the work becomes easy and fruitful. That is, it brings benefit. They accept it in a good way, in the right way. However, we have to try to open up to find the key to that lock, because no one has done it before until we have done it. No one has done it before us. And in the governments, the managements of those Jewish organizations, the managers who are there, and they're afraid of losing their chairs, or all kinds of religious rabbis who are in all kinds of places, and they're afraid of losing their places. Of course, we have to know how to avoid all of those things. Next, we have to understand between us, in a clear and precise manner, our role, the role of Bnei Baruch, why we were connected together, why we were lifted and then brought down, why all of this is being shown to us. There are people here who started studying 10 years ago and even more. They remember, and there are people who've been studying more than that for 20 years and more. There are people who remember that when we were studying, nobody believed that it will happen at our time, at our generation, that we will see how Kabbalah books are in every store, how it is possible to disseminate them, how it's possible to say this word without afraid of being put onto the fire. There were terrible perceptions about Kabbalah. So we have to understand what is the role in dissemination, and gradually, without the name Kabbalah, without the name Bnei Baruch, without my name there, etc., gradually to disseminate everything. Next. We now, in those 2 days, actually one day, today we will try to develop our method. There are many organizers, the panel that will now be speaking before you. They'll explain to you how everything is built, how they work in that. I, by the way, don't know anything about it. I work with the panelists. They tell me And I just nod with my head. I say, yes, yes, yes. But nevertheless, I cannot enter all the subtleties of their work. I love them very much. I appreciate them for the way in which they work. We are trying to create a single organization that will work on the connection with the Creator and on the connection with the Jews, and through them with the whole world. But now, at the present moment, in order for us to be able to contact the Creator, we must have a serious, massive layer of Jews that will be beneath us. Baal HaSulam writes about it in the introduction to the book of Zohar, and I hope that we will attain it with you soon. All of this, of course, is impossible without us, with you, without us being connected. We actually have to be connected between us, and then also our coming out to the world will be more successful. So again, I remind you, before you go out to any events, if it is an ordinary population, then maybe somehow, but if it is Jews, then we have to, in a very good way, to have a workshop about the connection between us, so that we will have this inner foundation, the spiritual force, so that we will be able to penetrate them somehow through this external wrapping, this external klipa, shell that they have, and somehow draw some response, some answer, some reaction. This is actually everything. This is what I wanted to tell you. I see that they assembled all kinds of passages for me that I can read, but all of them are from the introduction to the book of Zohar by Baal HaSulam. It's either item 71 or item 76. So somewhere from item 76 and onwards, introduction to the book of Zohar, you can read it there, and you can see again what it says. I would have very much advised you, I would ask of you to pay attention to it, that if you were drawn, if you were brought here, then you cannot say no. You have to realize that we, especially in such a time like now, it is a critical time for the entire planet, for every country, any country. And even though there are as if countries where this is not yet felt, especially if it's an ordinary person who's living his daily life, maybe he doesn't feel it yet, he just tries to somehow have a peaceful life. But actually, if we look at the world with the right eyes, we have to understand that the world is in a crisis. We have the solution. No one else has this solution in no way, and it's our responsibility before the world, and it is our responsibility to bring the world to wholeness and perfection before the Creator. We, with you, are the adapters between the upper force and humanity. We must not run away from it. Let's all try. And we can just go to seriously attract to us the next degree, our achap. And we will see how, to the same degree, we will start discovering the right connection with the Creator. It's all connected to one another. You can't come closer to the Creator without a serious desire. And they have the desire. They are our achap. So I very much hope that together with you, we will be able in the coming time. I don't think
I'm hiding, I'm feeling like I'm running out of time. No, I'm mindful of the fact it's operating from